The Girl in Apartment 3B. On a quiet Tuesday night in late September, the lights in Apartment 3B were still on long after midnight. That wasn't unusual. 26-year-old Lauren Bishop was a freelance graphic designer. She worked odd hours, lived alone, and preferred the silence of night. Her neighbors described her as polite but private, the kind of person who smiled in the hallway but never stopped to chat. At 8:42 p.m., Lauren sent a text to her older brother. "Hey, if anything weird happens, just know I love you." He responded with a laughing emoji. She never replied. 2 days later, the smell started. It drifted faintly through the hallway of the Willow Creek Apartments in Columbus, Ohio. At first, neighbors assumed it was trash, maybe something left in the stairwell. But by Thursday evening, it was strong enough that someone called the property manager. When maintenance unlocked Apartment 3B, they expected spoiled food. Instead, they found Lauren's apartment empty. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no signs of forced entry. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. A half-finished mug of tea sat beside it. Her phone was missing. Her purse was still hanging by the door. And the smell? It wasn't coming from inside the apartment. It was coming from the walls. Police were called immediately. Officers searched every inch of the unit. Nothing. But when they stepped into the hallway and followed the odor more carefully, they noticed it was strongest near the utility closet beside Lauren's apartment. Inside the narrow maintenance space, behind cleaning supplies and old paint cans, was a sealed plastic storage container. Inside that container was Lauren. There were no signs of a prolonged struggle, no indication she had been transported far. Whoever put her there knew the building, knew how rarely that closet was opened. The timeline became crucial. Security footage showed Lauren entering the building at 6:18 p.m. on Tuesday. She was alone, carrying groceries. No one appeared behind her. No one followed her in. At 7:03 p.m., a man exited the building, wearing a baseball cap and gray hoodie. His face was angled away from the camera. He did not appear on footage entering. That detail bothered detectives. How do you leave a building you were never seen entering? Then they noticed something else. At 5:51 p.m., 27 minutes before Lauren came home, someone had propped open the side service entrance near the dumpsters. It stayed open for exactly 4 minutes, long enough for someone to slip inside. Police canvassed the tenants. That's when they met Daniel Kessler from Apartment 2A. 31 years old, IT support technician, quiet, lived alone, paid rent on time, no criminal record. He told investigators he'd been home all evening playing video games. He claimed he never heard anything unusual. But when asked about Lauren, he hesitated. "Yeah, I've seen her around," he said. "She seemed nice." Seemed. Detectives obtained a warrant to check Daniel's phone location data. It placed him inside the apartment building at the time of the prop door. That was expected. He lived there. But it also showed something else. At 7:41 p.m., nearly 40 minutes after Lauren came home, his phone briefly connected to the Wi-Fi router assigned to Apartment 3B. Daniel insisted it must be a glitch. "Signals overlap," he said. "Routers cross-connect." Tech experts disagreed. Then came the search of his apartment. At first glance, it was tidy, clean to the point of sterility. But in his bedroom closet, tucked behind neatly arranged shirts, detectives found a small cardboard box. Inside were printed photographs of Lauren, not social media screenshots. Photos taken from inside the building. Lauren checking her mail, Lauren unlocking her door, Lauren carrying groceries. Some were dated nearly 3 months back. The most recent photo had been printed the day before she died. When confronted, Daniel's calm demeanor cracked. He admitted he'd been interested in Lauren. He said he was too shy to approach her. He insisted he never meant to hurt her. According to his statement, he entered her apartment using a copied key he'd made weeks earlier. He claimed he only wanted to talk, to finally explain his feelings. He said she panicked, threatened to call the police. He said things spiraled. But the forensic evidence didn't align with panic. There were no defensive wounds suggesting chaos, no broken furniture. Instead, investigators found subtle signs of preparation. Under Daniel's sink, they discovered industrial-strength cleaning supplies purchased 2 days before the incident. His computer search history included phrases like, "How to disable apartment cameras," "Can Wi-Fi logs track you?" "Time before decomposition smell." He hadn't spiraled, he had studied. The most unsettling detail came from Lauren's laptop. Forensic analysts recovered a draft email she'd started writing at 8:31 p.m., just 11 minutes before she texted her brother. It read, "I think someone has been in my apartment. Things are slightly moved. I feel stupid saying that, but I can't ignore it anymore. If I don't show up to brunch Sunday, please don't assume I forgot." She never sent it. Investigators believe Daniel had been entering her apartment for weeks while she was at work, moving small objects, sitting on her couch, watching her from inside her own home. On the night she confronted him, he was already inside when she walked through the door, waiting. The medical examiner determined Lauren's death occurred between 8:15 and 8:40 p.m., which means when she sent that final text to her brother, Daniel was likely still in the apartment, possibly watching her type it. During trial, prosecutors presented building keycard logs showing Daniel accessed the maintenance closet at 9:12 p.m., nearly 30 minutes after Lauren's last known activity. He didn't rush. He stayed, cleaned, waited for the hallway to quiet, then hid her just feet from her own front door. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Daniel Kessler was convicted of aggravated murder and sentenced to life without parole. But what continues to haunt residents of Willow Creek Apartments isn't just what happened, it's how easily it happened. Were no screams heard, no forced locks, no dramatic break-in, just a copied key, an unlocked service door, and someone who watched quietly for months. Lauren once told a coworker she loved living alone because it felt peaceful. She had no idea she wasn't alone. And sometimes, the most terrifying part of a crime isn't violence, it's proximity. Because the person who did this didn't travel across the state. He didn't lurk in shadows, he lived one floor below her. And for weeks before she realized something was wrong, he already had a key. After Daniel Kessler was sentenced to life in prison, most people believed the story was over. It felt contained. A stalker, an obsession, a tragic escalation, case closed. But 3 months after the trial ended, a detective assigned to review cold files reopened the evidence box from apartment 3B. Not because of a tip, confession. Because something about the timeline still didn't sit right. Daniel had entered the building at 5:51 p.m. through the propped service door. Lauren arrived home at 6:18 p.m. Daniel's phone connected to her Wi-Fi at 7:41 p.m. Lauren's final text was sent at 8:42 p.m. But the medical examiner estimated her time of death between 8:15 and 8:40 p.m. That overlap didn't make sense. If she died as early as 8:15, how did she send a text at 8:42? At trial, prosecutors argued adrenaline and time window uncertainty. But the detective reviewing the case wasn't satisfied. He requested a deeper forensic extraction of Lauren's phone data. That's when something unexpected surfaced. The 8:42 p.m. text to her brother was not manually typed. It was copied and pasted from her Notes app. Created at 6:11 p.m., 7 minutes after she walked into her apartment. The original note read, "If anything weird happens tonight, just know I love you." Not, if anything weird happens. If anything weird happens tonight. That meant she felt something was wrong, almost immediately after coming home. Before Daniel's phone connected to her Wi-Fi. Before 7:41, which raised a terrifying possibility. What if Daniel wasn't alone? Investigators quietly re-examined security footage from the building. There was the man in the gray hoodie leaving at 7:03 p.m. They had always assumed that was Daniel. 5:11. The man in the footage appeared shorter, broader, and when they enhanced the video they noticed something chilling. The man exiting the building limped slightly on his right leg. Daniel did not limp. Police pulled maintenance records for the building. There were only 2 master keys capable of opening all units. One was locked in the property manager's office. The other was assigned to the overnight maintenance supervisor, a 42-year-old man named Carl Dunham. Carl had worked at Willow Creek Apartments for 9 years. He knew every tenant, every blind spot in the camera system, every hallway that didn't echo. When detectives interviewed him the first time, he seemed cooperative. He claimed he had been off-duty the night Lauren died. But payroll records showed he clocked out at 6:47 p.m., not earlier. Security footage showed someone using a master key to access the utility closet at 8:58 p.m., earlier than Daniel's 9:12 keycard log. That meant someone entered the closet before Daniel officially logged access. Carl had a prior complaint filed against him 2 years earlier. A female tenant claimed he entered her unit without notice. The complaint was dismissed as a misunderstanding. When police obtained Carl's phone records, they found something deeply disturbing. At 6:05 p.m., on the night Lauren died, Carl's phone pinged inside apartment 3B's Wi-Fi network, earlier than Daniel's 7:41 connection. When confronted, Carl said it must have auto-connected while he was in the hallway. But Wi-Fi signal mapping later showed that connection could only happen from inside the unit. Then came the most unsettling detail of all. Inside Daniel's apartment, investigators had cataloged dozens of photos of Lauren. But metadata on several of those images showed they were taken from a higher angle, slightly downward, as if shot from someone taller. Daniel was 5'11", Carl was 6'3". And in the reflection of a microwave door in one photo, barely visible unless zoomed in, investigators saw something that changed everything. Figure, blurry, standing behind Daniel, watching Lauren check her mail. Daniel had never acted like a man protecting someone else. He had accepted full blame, never once implicated anyone. When detectives visited him in prison with the new findings, he didn't look surprised. He looked relieved. For nearly 6 hours, he said nothing. Then he asked a single question. Is he still working there? Carl Dunham was arrested 2 weeks later. During interrogation, his composure lasted exactly 19 minutes. He admitted to entering Lauren's apartment first that evening under the pretense of checking a water leak complaint that never existed. He said she accused him of being inside her home before. She threatened to report him. He panicked. He claimed Daniel walked in during the confrontation. But phone data tells a different story. Daniel and Carl had exchanged 47 messages over 3 months. None were ever recovered in full. They had been deleted, but timestamps matched nights when Lauren reported small items moved in her apartment. Investigators now believe Daniel wasn't acting alone. He had been obsessed. Carl had been opportunistic. 2 men with access, one with fixation, one with authority. The prosecution's new theory was chilling. Carl entered first that night. Lauren confronted him. Daniel arrived later. What began as surveillance became violence. But the most horrifying realization wasn't just that there were 2 of them. It was that Lauren sensed it. That's why her original note said tonight. She had noticed subtle shifts for weeks. Footsteps in the hallway. Objects moved slightly differently each time. That feeling of being watched from more than one direction. Carl eventually took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Daniel's sentence remained unchanged. The apartment building replaced its locks, installed new cameras, issued public apologies. But former tenants say something else lingers. The knowledge that for months, possibly longer, two men had keys. Two men entered quietly. Two men stood in her space. And when Lauren texted her brother that something felt weird, she was right. She just didn't know how many people were listening.